Okay, so for this next one, we have discontinuous measurements of behavior. So these in school, we learn to call them time sampling. Why? So we're looking if a behavior occurred during a specific observation session. So there's different ways in which we can do that. We have partial time recording, interval recording. We have whole interval recording, and then as well we have momentary interval recording. So, or time sample. So for these ones, for the partial interval recording, we're watching to see if the behavior occurred at all during the observation session. So if the behavior occurred, even if it was for a small part of the observation session, like we have here, we would say yes, because the behavior did occur. Maybe it occurred for a few seconds at the end during that interval, or maybe it occurred for the majority of the interval, but we still have to mark yes because the behavior occurred. So that would be partial interval recording. Then we have whole interval recording. So like the word says it, it's whole. So for that one, we would include yes or we would include no if the behavior occurred for the entire interval. So we're observing X behavior. I know for frequency I used clients sitting on their or getting up from their chair. So maybe the objective of this one would be client is able to sit in a chair throughout the duration of the interval or of the training we're doing, of the task we're teaching. So then we would mark yes if the client did sit on their chair for the entire interval. If the client happened to stand up even for a few seconds, or even if they just did it once, they wouldn't get a yes for that interval because they stood up. So the behavior has to occur for the whole interval from the beginning all the way to the end. And then the last one, we have momentary time sampling. So for that one, we're looking at the behavior at a specific moment. So let's say, so the behavior analyst or the RBT wouldn't observe the client during that time. The client is engaged in whatever they're doing. And then when the desired time comes, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes, a few seconds, depending on what it is we're doing, the behavior or the RBT will then look at the client and then record. Yes or no, was that behavior occurring at that moment that the analyst or the RBT looked at the client? Was the behavior occurring during that point? So my timer goes off. I have completed that interval. I look at the client. What behavior is the client engaging in? Is it in the behavior we're trying to measure? Yes. Okay, then we put yes. No, then we mark no. So these discontinuous measurements are great for someone like a parent who has to take care of another child, or who's doing work, or for a teacher who has many other students. They can't sit there and just count the frequency or just observe this client for a long period of time to measure the duration of something. So these measurements are simpler when you're not working one-on-one with a client. When you have other things that you also need to count, that you also need to engage in, that you're multitasking. They're not saying that it would be easy, but it's more acceptable or I guess more feasible during that situation than it is to ask for an IRT or a duration or a frequency, because those continuous measurements are more labor intensive, and they require more of that one-on-one treatment in order to record it correctly. So these are great for measuring if the behavior occurred, if it did not, and for someone who is multitasking, and they offer a great measurement for behavior.